Welcome back, Knights fans, to episode 2 of Charge On. I am your host, Sean Green. First, before we get into the Knights dub, it was a great game. We really enjoyed ourselves watching it, and we're excited to talk about it. But just want to give a huge thank you to everybody who checked out the first episode a couple days ago. I think all of us, me, Rob, Nick, were elated with the response. We were kind of caught off guard a little bit. I don't think any of us thought it would do that good for the first episode. So I just want to say thank you, and I hope that you guys stick with us for the season. And because, again, this team's going to be fun. But Nick, I think, were you shocked? Like, I woke up seeing the numbers, and I'm like, oh, I'm actually very pleased with this, and I'm happy Knight Nation is supporting us and kind of getting behind us.
Yeah, it's hard to be shocked, really, because Knight Nation's very loyal. There's a heavy presence of Knight Nation on social media, right? And there's a lot of youth there, and there's a lot of, hunger to listen to these podcasts and everything. And like you, I'm very glad to be a part of it again. And, it's been a while since I've sat down and I've really got to just sit back and analyze UCF again, football-wise, and see a game and do that tonight. I mean, I thought that was great. So yeah, it didn't really catch me off guard because I know that the UCF faithful is always there.
No, and Knight Nation is – I love Knight Nation. I'm so glad to be a part of it. I know you are too. And I'm so happy that we can do this podcast and just get our thoughts out there because – we go watch a game last season and we talk amongst ourselves. Now we can get in front of a camera and talk. And we're recording this at 11:30 at night. I just got home from the game. Nick got to watch it from the comfort of his own home. But there's nothing like the bounce house. It was raining. Here's the thing. I put out a tweet earlier. Here's the thing we need to just stop doing. And, I don't know who we talked to about this, but can we just – it needs to stop raining in, inclement weather on opening – game day for the first game of the
You remember Boise
season.
State last year, how much of a train
I was there.
That was. Yeah, I was there with you.
You were with me.
Train wreck.
This was a little bit easier. It only got pushed 5 minutes. But there was a second there where we're looking up at the sky, and I'm like, oh, this game's getting pushed to 9 o'clock. It looked awful. And I'm like, oh, well. And as we're walking to the stadium, right, it's still raining. But the games, they said, oh, it's going to go at 7:05. I'm like, there's no way. I just know there's going to be something. There's going to be some thunderstorm that's going to just randomly come in, and then they're going to have to bring all the people out of the stadium and sit in the concourse like we did against Boise. So I don't know who we need to talk to.
And it kills a crowd too, man. I texted you. I was like, send me a shot of the crowd because they just showed UCF running out of the tunnel, and I saw the entire black and gold cabana was completely empty. Yeah. Completely empty. And I was
I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed in that because it was packed. There was 44,000 people in there. It was pretty much sold out. The black and gold cabana section was the one spot in the entire stadium that didn't have a lot of people sitting in the seats. Everywhere from the student section across to the other student section on that one side was completely packed, which, again, I give credit to people for, again, if you're a UCF fan, you should go to every game, but this was SC State. It wasn't like you're playing Louisville. It was the opening game, so you expect fans to come, but, I'm not going to sit here and say the fans that, it was raining out. They're probably we can miss this game. So I do give credit to Knight Nation for still coming out, because I know in some areas they might just say, we'll just stay home. It's raining. It's SC State, whatever. But it was packed. That's why I sent you the video, because I'm like, it is packed in here. There's not a lot of wiggle room. And the student section was packed to the brim. When we were walking to the stadium, students were leaving. There was at least, I would say, probably 500 students that didn't get in the game. So that was just what I saw. I could be completely wrong, but I saw a lot of students going back to the parking garages to leave from tailgating. But what a great atmosphere. What a great first game. If anything, it makes me excited for next week. I will be going to Louisville. You will be there too. We will potentially be doing a live podcast post-Louisville. We'll get into that later. But that atmosphere is going to be crazy. After this game. But enough chat about the atmosphere. We obviously love it. But let's talk about the actual game that happened tonight. UCF's first on the slate, SC State. Ooh, I kind of like what I just did there. Ooh. First on the slate, SC State. My overall thoughts of this game was it was almost like a roller coaster, but in a roller coaster that has two drops where you're like, oh, when's the next drop coming? And then it comes. So obviously the first, I don't know, Nick, how was it? Like 7-8 minutes? They basically put up 28 points.
Yeah.
It was just, the game was over. Like, it was like, wow, okay. John Rice Plumlee, you tweeted about it, and I didn't want to, I was hesitant, and you could talk about it. I didn't want to necessarily say you're 100% right, but I'm like, you're not necessarily wrong either, right?
Yeah, I don't know how it looked in the stadium, but just on TV, he comes out there and he's wearing the number 10. And who do we associate that number with here at UCF? It's obvious, right?
Mackenzie.
And yeah, and the way John Rice Plumlee kind of asserted himself into the offense, we already knew about the running style. I don't know what it is. Just seeing him wear the black and the white helmet and the UCF, and seeing him running and breaking tackles and making guys miss, and even like the kind of like quick twitch, that throw that he kind of had, it was like I was watching Mackenzie Milton. And again, it could just be the number. If you put him in number 15, I don't know if it's going to look the same, but he looked like a Mackenzie Milton clone on that first drive, and I guess that's what got me really excited. And then of course you got to pump the brakes and realize it's South Carolina State. It's week 1, and that's why it's so hard to evaluate this game. It's so hard to evaluate this game. Obviously, you want to get out without any injuries, and UCF, I believe, was able to do that, right?
Yeah.
The players who we expected to flash, they flashed. The transfers on offense from the SEC were big time to jumping out to that 28 to nothing lead or whatever it was. So I think, but that first time I watched John Rice Plumlee, I was blown away. I was like, this is Mackenzie Milton.
And I think the questions that, like, obviously on the last episode, we were talking about the question marks, right? You know, passing accuracy, his arm, would we be able to see that? And I said, we want to be able to see that this game specifically, right? We know you can run the ball. We know that you have that ability. Let us see you throw a bunch of balls against SC State. Let's see that accuracy. And I will say, though not perfect, John Rice Plumlee played as good as you would want to see out of your starting quarterback against an SC State and moving forward. I mean, 20 for 31. He had 308 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and then 13 carries, 99 yards, and a touchdown on his leg. So 5 total touchdowns, almost 100 yards rushing, 300 yards passing. I mean, when you say Mackenzie Milton, and that's the thing, it is SC State. And I told you texted me and you go, that looks like a lot like Mackenzie Milton. And I said, it was just the first series against SC State. We need to, slow down. But to your point, listen, it's very hard. That touchdown pass to Javon Baker, I agree with you. The sidearm, putting it right in the spot that he was going to be on a wide receiver slant down the middle, I'm like, whoa, that was a dot. I'm calling JRP, dot, because he was just throwing these
I've never
dots
seen him throw
all
like
the field.
that. Yeah, I've never seen him throw that like that, honestly. I'm more, to me, the throw that he made to Kamori Gamble was the one that I went, whoa, like this. And even the one where it was kind of it was a backyard football type play. Remember, there was the offside on the third down, right? And I believe they were maybe around the 40-yard line, whatever. And he just said it was a free play. And I know that it was out of bounds to Javon Baker, who, by the way, made a great effort. But he came down with that. And I just saw that throw, and I was just like, okay, this guy has some confidence. He's locked in. And you could tell he was airing it out, which you didn't see him do that much at Ole Miss. And I appreciated Gus Malzahn doing that as well, because I think Gus Malzahn last year was pretty conservative in his play calling, I'd say. I love how in this game they kind of established, hey, we're going to push the ball down the field. We're going to play this exciting brand of football, because that's what UCF is, right? You're supposed to be an exciting brand of football. That's your identity, no matter who's coaching the team. So I appreciate Gus Malzahn for doing that, and I appreciate John Rice Plumlee executing it.
No, and he did execute it. And I think looking at kind of the way that the offense was ran tonight, I mean, they ran the football a lot. It was a lot of running the football. When you have that running quarterback in John Rice Plumlee, and then you have those rushers in Bowser and Richardson, it accounts to a lot of running. You threw the ball 31 times, but, running the ball, John Rice, 13 carries, Bowser, 21, Richardson, 6. Like, that adds up too. So it was very even in the sense that you got a lot and you got to see a lot. But I think what we were talking about last week or last episode, kind of, it's very obvious what the offense is. It's play action every single play. You don't know if they're running the football, if they're throwing the football, if John Rice is going to, take it off himself, which makes this offense dynamic and scary to go against. Because, if you're doing a play action every time in a RPO, you don't know who's going to have the football. There were some times, and it was hard to watch at the bounce house because I'm wondering, who's the ball going to? I might be watching Bowser, and actually John Rice has the ball, and I'm like, now I have to, it was that quick where you're like, I have no idea who has the ball at this point. So I think the throws he made, like you said, they were outstanding. Now, we do have to talk, second, somewhat third quarter, offense got stagnant. They were going 3 and outs, and they gave SC State, it wasn't like they were back in the game, but they put up 10 unanswered, and you could see some of, not necessarily the holes, but you could see the things that need to be worked on and need to be improved on. I think John Rice is still trying to learn. He was very excited in the pocket, and I think he did keep his eyes down the field a little too long in the sense that instead, maybe at Ole Miss, he would just be like, oh, okay, there's nothing, let's run. Today, he was getting really excited making those long throws. And, that's what ultimately kind of cost him on that sack, fumble recovery to go down was you look too long, you get sacked, and then, you get screwed up in that pocket.
Yeah, and then he also had the one that he made to Ryan O'Keefe downfield, which I think that was 100% O'Keefe that just somehow was able to battle into that one. But again, he got all that confidence, and that's great. But I think the drive after, if you recall, again, you didn't have the benefit of seeing it on TV, but they broke it down. He kept his eyes downfield so much. There was a play where Isaiah Bowser was wide open in the middle. Wide open in the flat. And he probably had maybe 10 to 12 yards of green in front of him to keep going. And John Rice just kind of missed him. And he acknowledged it, I missed him. But he had his eyes downfield. I think he threw it to Griffin instead, who was covered. He overthrew him. I think that was an example in this game where you could see that he still has some room to grow. And again, that's why I don't want to overanalyze everything, but I don't want to also nitpick John Rice Plumlee because it's still a new system for him, kind of, I guess. And I think the one thing I will say, the positive, he definitely brings a different dimension to this offense that hasn't been there in a long time. I mean, I think Dylan Gabriel, I don't think anybody's going to tell you that Dylan Gabriel or John Rice Plumlee is a better passer than John Rice Plumlee. I don't think anybody's going to tell you that. But Dylan Gabriel, the knock on him was he didn't use his feet enough. I think he probably could have been better at it. He didn't do it. John Rice Plumlee, that's what I said. I go back to Mackenzie Milton. That's exactly what Mackenzie Milton used to be. I'm not saying he's as good as Mackenzie Milton. I'm just saying I think the play style is going to be a lot more similar to that. And I think that's the reason also why Mikey Keene lost out on this quarterback competition. Because could you imagine how different the offense would look with Mikey Keene in there?
Yeah, very different. I mean, and it's different in the way that you think about situations or situational football in this sense. When there was a 3rd and 4, right? I'm thinking, okay, let's run it with John Rice. He can pick up 4 yards.
Yeah, it was your best play.
Right? Whereas last year, if it's 3rd and 4, you're like, okay, what offensive pass are we going? I mean, because Bowser was injured. So maybe you can pick up those 4 with Bowser, which I'm actually going to say SC State played as good of defense, stopping the run on Bowser as you could. For 21 carries, 72 yards, I think they did a really good job stopping the run, personally. Now I'm thinking differently, and I know Gus is, and that's why he's the starter, because you're like, okay, 3rd and 4, we can, again, do a play action, and it opens up so much. And we can't really nitpick. Again, no offense, it is SC State.
Yeah.
He had as good of a game as we needed to see. And the real test is going to come up next week. I'm not saying Louisville, excuse me, gosh. I'm not saying Louisville is the best team in college football. It's obvious they're not. They have a lot of holes. Their defense is not that good. But you're going to have to score points. You're going to have to keep up with Louisville's offense. And we'll get into UCF's defense because I think that is the star of the night. That is the stat. Is UCF's defense showed out tonight.
Yeah.
But
and I was going to say,
you're going to have to keep up point-wise.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if you want to nitpick things on the offense and the special teams, and I think these are valid criticisms, I mean, 10 penalties for 85 yards against South Carolina State. Against a better opponent, again, in a much tighter game, 10 penalties for 85 yards is going to come back to bite you every single time. I've seen that story with UCF teams in the past so many times when they lose games, and it just can't happen moving forward. And I know probably, I'm almost positive Gus Malzahn probably went in the locker room. He probably mentioned that. I'm sure he did. I'm sure that bugs him they had 10 penalties, and that's good. It should. And then I'm ready to already say this because I have 2 years of the example, and I have one game.
Oh, we're about get Obarski out of here.
I'm sorry. He's not a starting kicker, at least at this program. He's not. I mean, he hasn't made a field goal over 40 yards. He didn't make a single field goal over 40 yards last year. He had that golden opportunity before half, and just not even close. I can't believe he's still here, honestly. I thought that was a position that Gus may have tried to have strengthened. I know they have a good recruit coming in the next year, but for now, I think this is serious concern.
Well, and here's the thing, yes. And again, you try to give him the benefit of the doubt. He clearly won the competition. They signed a kid last offseason or last recruiting cycle, Colton Boomer.
Yeah.
First of all, come on. I want to see a kid with the last name Boomer kicking field goals.
That's a great name right there.
That's a great name right there. Colton Boomer kicking bombs in the bounce house. Like, come on. So I'm sitting there, and as soon as he's going to kick that field goal, I'm like, he's going to miss it. I don't know why. It's every
There's no
time
confidence there. There's no confidence there. Listen, I'll give
when
you
he kicks. No, and I'll give him this extra points. He has the confidence. He makes the extra points when he goes up there. Whenever there's a chance for three, he misses it, and it's so frustrating. It is because it is it wasn't like it was a long field goal. I mean, what was the field goal? I think 44.
Yeah, it was just over 40. And again, but I told you, he hasn't made a single field goal over 40 yards since, I believe, 2020. That's a problem. That's a problem that's got to be addressed. I don't want to – that's something that I'm not gonna sugarcoat at all when we talk about UCF is the fact that I have not seen it in Daniel Obarski since he got on campus. His play has not proven that he can be a starting caliber kicker at this program, and it is a problem. There is no doubt about it.
Not everybody can be a Matthew Wright, clearly. But special teams, I will say, no nitpicking, but special teams was awful tonight. Not so much on the returners. O'Keefe did outstanding on the return game, but most of those penalties came from special teams. I mean, hold. Yep. O'Keefe got to the 50 probably every single time, and every time it got brought back as a hold. So clearly, hopefully Brian Blackman can figure that out, in the next couple days going into Louisville because, listen, that's going to help the offense even more. If you can, get a good return on these punts and kicks, I mean, that's going to help your offense score points. So, you mentioned it, the 10 penalties, 85 yards, special teams, I think are the big, this can't happen, consistently. Stop holding. We don't want hold penalties. That's bad. Defense. I'll say, again, take it with a grain of salt because of who we played. But my God, I mean, everything that we thought the defense was, especially the defensive line, and even the corners, I'm like, okay, this is a different defense from last year. Not saying that they weren't good last year, but you can just see the difference. I mean, you could see, they are getting to the quarterback consistently. Stopping the run, they couldn't run on us. I can't remember a run breaking for more than, and I might be wrong on this, so please, Night Nation, please don't, whatever, but I can't remember a run by SC State longer than 10 yards. I can't physically remember it watching the game because it seemed like any time they ran the ball, it was either stop, right? Like, nothing happened, or a quarterback run outside and Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste just stopped it, or, Justin Hodges, who had an outstanding game.
Well, I mean, 33 carries for 35 yards. 33 carries for 35 yards. So there you go. UCF basically totally took their running game out of it. And I think what jumped out to me about the defense is there's just so much experience now. It was a younger group last year because they were replacing so many guys like Richie Grant and Tay Gowan and Aaron Williams, Aaron Robinson. They were replacing so many veterans on that defense, right? And I look at this year, and you already mentioned Hodges, who looks like he's coming into his own as is probably the best guy back there in the defensive backfield. But, Trayvon Morris-Brash, he's older. I like him a lot. I mean, Devad Wilson has played a lot of football in his college career. Anthony Montalvo is one of the leaders. Ricky Barber. You have some guys who have been here for a little while now and are really vocal. And there's also, a mix of young guys. I mean, Nakai Martinez, we got a chance to see in this game as well in the back end, and he was great in the little span that we saw him play. I think he had a sack and a tackle for loss. I mean, that's what you're looking for, especially for a guy Kim, who's one of UCF's, I think, highest rated recruits ever as of last year's class, that comes in and plays his ass off right away. So, yeah, I mean, it's South Carolina State. I expect you to do that, but I think what's important here is Gus Malzahn has been preaching this. We're known for offense. We're known for offense. We want to be known as defense too. And I think Travis Williams is the guy to do that. I think these guys clearly listen to him. They bought in. And so I was really impressed with what they did tonight. When you only give up 91 yards of offense, I think you put in a pretty good shift.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the one good thing. I mean, if we look at their defensive possessions, right, like early on they really didn't give anything up. Obviously, John Rice fumbles. O'Keefe makes the outstanding save on the 2, and defense stops him, holds him to a field goal. I mean, that shows kind of the difference in UCF's defense this year. Maybe last year, I don't know. Like, again, later on in the year, they were much better. But the fact that they are on the 2-yard line, they have 3 downs to get it in, and they back up. Again, you don't want to go crazy about it because it is SC State, and you're going to be playing a pretty good quarterback next week. But I think this just shows you, number one, the depth, right? Because right behind Justin Hodges, you got Nakai Martinez. So it's like, and then on the defensive line, you got Lee Hunter on the bench. So it's like, the depth, and we talked about this, right? The depth showed tonight, and it showed how good this defense can be. We just need to see it moving forward and see how it could progress.
Yeah, and a shout out too to Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste, who I saw was wearing the C, so he was voted as a captain, which is great to see because, I know that he was pretty close to Tatum Bethune, who we talked about on the last pod, how important he was, how big of a loss he was, and how much of a gain he was for Florida State. I was keeping my eye on that linebacking core, and I think Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste was flying around the field. He looked fantastic. So, again, that tells me he's going to be the leader of that group, and he looks like he's here to stay. So I think that's also a big takeaway. Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste, he might be the overall leader of the defense, honestly.
Oh, I mean, yeah. He was pretty impressive tonight. Just the way, like, there was a couple runs, quarterback got out of the pocket, and he was there in an instant.
He looks a little quicker. He looks a little quicker this year than he did past few years.
Well, the linebacking core, I mean, the defense just looked fast, which, again, I don't want to keep going back to the previous years and saying, the defense just looked super quick. Where previous years, we'd be so frustrated because it's like every time quarterback got out of the pocket, no chance of stopping him. And again, I keep bringing it up, and it's reiterating because it's next week is huge. You're going to go up against a quarterback that, it's going to get out of the pocket and he's going to run. Can you stop it? Can you get to him quick? Instead of getting a 15-yard run, can you hold him to a 7? Those are the questions we're going to have answered. And if you go into Louisville, or if Louisville comes here and you just demolish them as a defense, no offense to every other team we're playing, but I don't know if you're going to find a much better quarterback than Malik Cunningham next week. So, I mean, that's going to be a big test. But we will talk about that on the next episode about Louisville because that's a huge game. But Corey Fields, we talked about him. A little bit different than what I expected, at least. Maybe it was just the game, but 5 of 14. So not as many passes as we're used to seeing him throw. He got yanked from the game. 42 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. You talked about it, Nick, but they played 4 quarterbacks and had a total combined of 56 yards passing. I mean, not a bad night for your secondary at all.
No, I mean, like I said, you put in a good shift when you hold guys to that. Again, I expect them to do it. I know I feel like I sound like a broken record here, but this is what I expect you to do to this team. I mean, you look across college football when you're playing layups. Well, one thing I said you should not do is be like North Carolina. North Carolina, I'll mention again like in the last pod, gave up, I think, 27, 28 points to FAMU. And I think FAMU didn't have a lot of players eligible for that game either. That's what I didn't want to see. That's what I really did not want to see. And really all that happened, a late touchdown. You had the strip sack kind of that almost went back for 6, which, by the way, shout out to Ryan O'Keefe for great effort on that one. And to John Rice as well. I think he was going to catch him if O'Keefe didn't. So that was good to see. But, yeah, South Carolina State was a mess from the beginning. I mean, we had the whole viral punt that went on. That went viral. I
still don't understand it.
He had a chance to run for the first down, and then all of a sudden he was afraid to get. He's like, these guys are not the MEAC players I'm used to getting hit from. I'm just gonna punt this thing. But that was again because
I saw it firsthand. Yeah. He was running, and he saw he was gonna get demolished, and the pooch. It was.
And that changed. Hey, that was part of UCF getting so much momentum early on because that put UCF on the 25-yard line, whereas they would have been backed up in their own 20 probably. So again, that's a mental error, but that's what teams like that do. And if you're UCF, you take advantage of those. And the next play again was the touchdown to Gamble.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, Nick. Let's talk about our offensive winners and our offensive losers. We're going to give one each. Obviously, again, everybody played pretty great. There's no one player that, you could be like, didn't really perform well. It was a great team effort for the first game. Nick, who kind of stood out to you that you're on offense being like, okay, this guy really inserted himself well tonight against SC State?
I'm going to go with Kamori Gamble. We didn't talk about him much when we were talking about kind of additions to the offense, and I kind of wanted to. And tonight he showed what he can bring to this offense. And we forget this guy played at Florida. He played behind Kyle Pitts for 2 years.
Yeah.
Right? Which ironically, him wearing the number 8, he kind of looked like Kyle Pitts. I watched a lot of Florida football. And I just never remember him being that athletic, but that catch that he made, I mean, just going all out for it, able to hold it in. I mean, I was like, damn, man. Like, look at this athletic tight end. I mean, and UCF has had a lot of really good athletic tight ends in the past, like Jordan Akins and Jacob Harris, who were 2 NFL guys, right? And I think the offense was always rolling when they had a super hyper-athletic tight end. So that's why I'm really excited about what Kamori Gamble can do here for this offense. And of course, being a safety blanket for John Rice Plumlee, but even able to stretch the field like that. That really took me back a little bit for a guy who's 6'4", 240, I think. And of course, a great story. For those who don't know, he transferred to UCF because he wanted to be closer to where his mom was, so she could see him play because she doesn't like flying. So again, this is a guy who really wants to be here and to play at UCF and grow. And he knows what it takes to win. He was on some of those Florida teams where there's a high standard. I know he was there when they weren't winning much, but he knows the standard, and I think he's going to help out a lot. So he was my big winner tonight.
No, and he was outstanding. Honestly, there was a couple times the play broke down, and he is the one player that I found always getting open. Like, he would find a way to get open, and yeah, he looked like he was John Rice's security blanket tonight. So I'm pretty excited to see. I definitely want to see more of Alec Holler. I think if you put them both in the game at one time, I think that can be a dynamic tight end group. But listen, we both know what Gamble can do. He was at Florida. didn't really get to show much in the 1 year he did kind of start the most because, again, Florida's offense wasn't – and quarterback play, but the offense just wasn't designed. It's almost like Mullen kind of – we don't want to get into Florida talk, but Mullen kind of changed the offense once Pitts left, thinking, Pitts isn't here, so we got to now change it. And it's like you had a amazing tight end just waiting in the wings. So it's you had Kyle Pitts, but you had a guy that was good behind him. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he does because I think he's going to end up being probably, and I know this is a big whatever, but I think he might be that like most important piece moving forward for this Knights team specifically on offense. Me personally, and listen, I think this guy, Javon Baker, Alabama transfer, played as well as you would want, and he was outstanding early on, caught the first touchdown pass of John Rice Plumlee. He had that long catch, I forgot how many yards, but it was a great throw by Plumlee, great catch by him, and he went for that long run. Somebody next to me said, "Oh, he should have taken it to the house. That was a little too slow." I'm like, he was going pretty fast. But I think, again, you talked about it, getting these guys from the SEC that said, "I want to come to UCF. I want to come and play under Gus. I want to be with this team." Javon Baker was playing for Nick Saban. He said, "I'm going to come here." Now, I know Alabama fans will say, "Oh, he wasn't even that good for us. He whatever." He still was with Nick Saban. He was still in that locker room. He still could have stayed there, and who knows, he could have played. He came here, and he showed impact. One thing I will say, couple drops. Alabama fans, I know that is a thing that they said he does drop balls. Again, that's something we can work on. But let's be real, 5 recs, 9 targets, 84 yards and a touchdown. I mean, I would take that stat line every game from Javon Baker.
Yeah, he was very impressive, and I think that was my main takeaway was the SEC transfers. It's amazing what the transfer portal can do. Amazing. A lot of people want to, dump on the transfer portal, and, God knows we could do a long-form discussion on that, and I won't bore you with that tonight. But you could see the benefit there. I mean, to bring in just 3 guys, John Rice Plumlee, Javon Baker, and Kamori Gamble, and immediately those are your 3 biggest pieces of your offense that they were able to transform. And again, that goes back to Gus Malzahn and his staff for identifying that talent. And it looks like it's going to pay off because I was looking who's going to be that second guy behind Ryan O'Keefe. Because Ryan O'Keefe, by the way, he looks even better than he did last year. So obviously he still has another level to get to, which is scary. But
which people will look at that stat line. Sorry to cut you off. So people will look at that stat line and be like, "Oh, O'Keefe had an off game." It's the other things O'Keefe does. I mean, he makes the offense dynamic because you have to watch him. Like, you have to make sure he's not getting the football because if he does, you better watch out.
Yeah, I mean, he almost finished with close to 100 yards and only caught 2 passes because of his impact in the end-around game. I mean, those design plays for him. When he's out in open space, he's as dangerous as anybody in college football. I don't think anybody's going to dispute that. I'm a big Ryan O'Keefe guy, but the fact that you could put Javon Baker opposite of him as kind of a replacement, because remember last year we didn't get much of Jalen Robinson. We really didn't because of the injuries. And I think we were always kind of looking for who else besides Ryan O'Keefe was going to step up. And I think this year, so far, all indications are that guy's going to be Javon Baker.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of guys waiting in the wings, too, that can probably help this Knights team, God forbid. But, I mean, Amari Johnson's hurt, and he, by all accounts in camp, they were saying he was, the guy. Yeah. Kobe Hudson is somebody I definitely want to see more of. I think he didn't get enough to do tonight, but definitely think he could also help out that wide receiver room. Nick, defensively, who is the guy that just really impressed you tonight? Again, the entire defense was outstanding, but who's one guy that kind of just popped for you tonight?
Yeah, I mentioned him earlier. I know probably not the biggest impact on the whole the whole game, but to actually see him in there was Nikai Martinez. I keep going back to him because to come in here as a true freshman, to play, in the spurt that he did, and to impress, I think that Travis Williams is going to be like, okay, we have something here. And as this season goes on, I think you're going to see him kind of force his way into that starting lineup because talent always wins out. It always wins out. I don't care if you're a true freshman. I don't care if you're a redshirt senior. The talent's always going to win out. And Nikai Martinez is probably as talented or more talented than anybody in that defensive backfield, including Devad Wilson, including Justin Hodges, in my opinion. And he's going to have his freshman moments. I get that. But I was really impressed with what I saw in this game. So I think he's going to carve out a little role for himself if he keeps this up. And I think that's why he was my biggest takeaway. But I mean, you could say the entire defense, to be honest.
Yeah, gets on the field, gets a sack right away. I mean, very impressive. He kind of had his, welcome to college football moment. He did, do a pass interference. We can debate it if it was, but he did. He just pops on the field. Like, you could tell the reason, like when everybody was talking about him, leading up to this game, there was a reason. Everybody would talk about Nikai, and it's like, okay, let's see it. And he did pop on the field. I do want to mention his starter, Justin Hodges. That's my guy. I think I was so impressed. He has made such a huge leap, especially from last year, getting thrust into the starting lineup because of injuries. He has shown me, like, this guy loves football. All the coaches, like especially Travis Williams, said this guy dreams about football. I know they say that about every football player that, like, oh, this guy loves football. I think this guy is special. I think he could go to the NFL. He can go to the league just by the way he plays. He plays ferociously. He knows how to play this position. Now, it is a designed position in the, UCF defense, but I think the kid's special, and he was everywhere on the field tonight. So, huge shout out to Justin Hodges. I think like Jeremiah John Baptiste, I think he might be like the second or third most important person on the defense this season specifically. And he's going to be big next week against Louisville. We're going to need him to have a really good game. All right, Nick, final thoughts before we wrap up episode 2 of Charge On.
Yeah, like I said, it's hard to really go full in and evaluate this because this is a team I expected you to do this. I mean, I said 52-7. What'd you say? 49-10, I believe, or something like that.
I was so close.
You were so close. You were so close to hitting it right on the head.
I was literally, they scored a touchdown, and I'm like, I just want the score to stay the same. But then it was almost like, would I be disappointed? Because then if I went and put money on the score, then I would make a lot. So it's like, there was that part of me that's like, okay, I want you to score, but also I want to be right. And then I could clip that, put it on socials. Hey, listen, you got to come check out the show because I guess scores, man.
Yeah. But yeah, and my other big takeaway here, not really a takeaway, but just something I'm looking forward to is next week against Louisville first of all, I want the rain to stay away because it's a Friday night game. I love Friday night atmospheres inside the Bounce House. I'll say it, the Bounce House. I love Friday night atmospheres there. I'm showing up there. It better not rain. And I want to see a full stadium packed. I want to see a full packed-in stadium. I know that there was never going to be that for South Carolina State. That's fine. For Louisville on a Friday night, I want to see that. I want to see this program get a little bit of their swagger back, just a little bit back, because I feel like we've lost some in the last couple of seasons. So I want to see that come back against Louisville.
Nick will be in studio next week post game for Louisville, which will be exciting. I don't know how we're going to do that yet. We got to figure that out. Technology. We love technology so much. It's so fun. Throughout the episode, if you heard Nick clicking, that's just his computer. So please don't roast or say our audio's bad. Again, technology. We're learning. But again, my final thoughts, great game. So happy that just college football is back. You mentioned it on your radio show this morning, the JP Peterson show. Tune in, even though, we need to get some UCF content on there.
You're a little salty today about that show.
No, a little salty. We don't want to talk about it, but you brought up and said, listen, we are just glad that we could talk about these games and not have to talk about leagues and realignment and
TV contracts.
TV contracts, even though there was that report, and we'll talk about that next week. But I'm so glad that we could talk about stats, receptions, passing yards, and how they played. I'm so glad. I'm so happy. We got NFL coming back too. So it's a fun time. I'm happy for the dub. I think 56-10 is a great score. I was a little nervous when it was 28-10. I'm like, we need to beat this team by a lot more to get recognition. So I think we'll move up a couple spots. Not making no top 25 yet. But if you go and beat Louisville, you're in the top 25.
Hey, I'm just saying, we got about a minute package on Scott Van Pelt tonight. UCF did. So can't say that about years past. So there you go.
No, you can't. Want to thank everybody for tuning in to episode 2 of Charge On. We will be back. Gosh, when's next? It's next Friday. We'll be back at some point next week. I'm trying to think of what date should we release an episode for our UCF fans. Probably Wednesday, right? We should do a Wednesday episode probably.
Yeah,
Let's do
Wednesday. Wednesday.
Let's
pencil us in for Wednesday there.
Let's pencil us in for Charge On episode 3 on Wednesday, where we will give you all your Louisville versus UCF info, our thoughts on the game that I think, I predicted we would lose, but now I don't know. We got to see Louisville this weekend and see kind of what they're looking like. But all in all, great game. Nick, obviously, thank you for coming on. Even though you're an every weeker or every podcast type of guy for me. So I appreciate you. And I appreciate all you for tuning in to Charge On. Obviously, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, at Sean M.R. Green. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. I mean, so pleased. We have 18 new subscribers. I know it's low, but we will get it up. But I appreciate all of you that have subscribed. Nick, do you want to shout your Twitter for the people?
Yeah, Nick Geddes News. NickGeddes News. Nick Geddes News.
So follow him. Rob will be back next episode. He fell asleep. Let's just be real. He got home from the game.
He partied
and passed
too hard
out.
a little bit. He partied hard a little bit.
Here's the thing. He was late to the game, so I mean, he didn't party that hard.
I'm not surprised there. At least he wasn't like the guy 3 rows back. So
we don't want to talk about it.
We don't need to get to that, but.
All right. Thank you for coming to Charge On. Go Knights. Charge On. See you guys next week.